more people are seeing that, yeah, affordable childcare is a big deal. More parents are seeing the value of educators when they had to bring their kids and said, we're not paying them nearly enough.
That right there is Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, hysterically laughing when discussing struggling parents who aren't able to send their kids to school. Yeah. That was almost as bad as her laughing when asked if she would visit the migrant facilities that her government stuffed thousands of people over capacity to after inviting them into the United States.
Do you have plans to visit the border?
Not today.
Yeah, hilarious. Nothing sociopathic there at all. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rudowski of WeAreChange.org. In related sociopathic news, we have some very interesting developments surrounding Ghislaine Maxwell, which we're going to be getting into, along, of course, with new bombshell revelations against what people are calling one of the founding fathers of woke ideology. Accusations that are extremely sickening, that, of course, by and large, are dramatically underreported in the U.S. Western mainstream media that routinely obfuscates it rather than actually call it out. But before we get into that, plus a lot more on this independent media organization, it is also important to point out that the U.S. military is becoming hyper-polarized as we are speaking, and more political. This was highlighted by a great opinion piece in Newsweek that is titled, quote, "From Soft Liberalism to Iron-Fisted Leftism in Today's U.S. Military," which is a good article that I definitely would recommend you guys read to understand some of the bigger consequences and larger problems, especially in the context of history when it comes to the military caring more about ideology rather than merit. Now, along with his woke army, U.S. President Joe Biden is now working with big tech trying to mandate and enforce digital health passports, while at the same time, his administration is arguing that people don't need identification when it comes to voting in the United States. Now, of course, what he is pushing has huge privacy concerns, as of course stated by Florida Governor DeSantis, who is vowing to ban such huge, major, privacy-intrusive, strict controls of a medical passport, which he is promising to ban. Now, when you look at Florida, especially in the mainstream media landscape, they have received a lot of criticism, but in retrospect, when you compare the actions of the state of Florida comparatively to California, that now has almost double the rate of unemployment than the state of Florida because of the strict lockdowns and restrictive measures imposed by the California government, which the mainstream media cheered on. When you compare the two, they almost have identical number of cases when it comes to the percentage of population, which highlights an important factor here of what happens when the government intervenes and comparatively when the government stays out of your way like it did in Florida. One of the reasons why I personally moved down here, which I am talking about extensively on LukeUncensored.com. Lots of very interesting tidbits. Now, there are some things to criticize the Florida governor on, but I think his points, especially surrounding security and privacy concerns with this medical passport, are right on the money. We have already seen very negative consequences and a two-tier society already established in places like Israel, where many people who refuse to get a rushed experimental jab can't function in society. A jab, by the way, tied to big pharma companies that don't have the best ethical record, some even having an extensive criminal record that deserves to be called out. One of the companies providing the shot has been banned in many countries, now specifically banned in Germany for anyone under the age of 60 after many complications arose. The same shot that's banned in other countries, but many Western countries, including the Canadian government, says is perfectly safe for you. Words issued by the Prime Minister of Canada that is now putting his citizens in mandatory camps if they test positive. And in Canada, the government mandates you to take a test before flying into Canada, arriving in Canada, and also another 14 days at the end of your forced 14-day quarantine. That's a a lot of tests that, of course, will prevent a lot of poor people from being able to travel. And I'm sorry, governments that punish poor people back big pharma industries, play politics with this sickness, use this sickness to call for more globalism to replace nationalism. I'm sorry, but when you have all of this, when you have an agenda that's political prioritized rather than the actual health and well-being of the people, rather than actually having a real conversation on things like obesity and vitamin D, when you have all of these things, I think it's definitely best to be skeptical, to say the least. And in my own personal opinion, I think, as proven by Florida, that less government has proven to work a lot better than more government in many instances. But hey, that's just my own political opinion, which, by the way, is becoming more and more restricted on platforms like this that you're watching this video on. That's why I can't recommend enough that you sign up on our email list. Just click the link right now in the description. Put in your email. It costs you nothing. It's free. And yesterday, we even sent out a special free exclusive video from LukeUncensored.com to the email list. If you are signed up on the email list, make sure to check your email, check your spam box. Make sure to click that the email is not spam so you could get an exclusive look at the content that we are providing people at LukeUncensored.com. We sent you one free video from that platform, which I think you guys will greatly enjoy. LukeUncensored.com is our paid subscription service that costs you 50 cents a day, helps grow this independent media organization, and allows me to talk about issues in a way where I'm not stifled. I could talk about whatever I want, especially on the more serious issues that predominantly are not allowed on this platform. Yesterday, I discussed my very interesting conversation with a high-level U.S. military member. And if you want that content almost every single day, sign up LukeUncensored.com. But again, it costs you nothing to sign up on the email list. And sporadically, we will be sending you free videos randomly through our email list. But to get all of them, you're going to have to go to LukeUncensored.com. Now, before we get into the new indictments against Ghislaine Maxwell in this larger situation, I think it's also important to note that this is a situation that, of course, we've been taking very seriously from the very beginning, while the mainstream media was obfuscating or trying to forget about this very particular situation. And as very large, powerful institutions try to hide this story, we also have to acknowledge that there are some government institutions, this one specifically in the United Kingdom, that are absolutely making a travesty of this very serious issue that there usually is very little justice to. Now, one of the reasons that some of the cases have gotten no justice when it comes to this particular criminal act is because of the government, police, judges, prosecutors, and politicians being very closely related to a lot of these traffickers and abusers of children that have had thousands of victims. There's a lot of people associated with them, including many academics, Harvard University professors that are now being punished for lying about their extensive ties with individuals like Mr. Epstein, who of course also routinely met with individuals like Bill Gates, along with many other Harvard scientists. I would say work on some very peculiar, some would say satanic scientific experiments. Now, even though some of these Harvard professors are being punished right now, Bill Gates still chooses to ignore direct questions, especially during AMAs, about his close relationship to then convicted criminal Mr. Epstein. There's also, of course, Bill Clinton, who ditched his Secret Service and is reported to be on Epstein's plane and island numerous amounts of times. Let's not also forget the Queen's favorite son in the United Kingdom, Prince Andrew, who, of course, bold-faced lied about his relationship and whereabouts with Mr. Epstein. And you would think, with such a huge story, with so many people implicated, so many people still not getting justice, thousands of children, some of whom are adults right now, who have never seen any form of justice because of their abuse, you would think this would be an issue that our media and our institutions would strive towards fixing and making right. and they're not. What are they doing? Well, in the United Kingdom, in public schools, they are making 12-year-olds apologize for unspeakable actions that we can't even mention here on this YouTube channel that were allegedly committed by their gender. Now, they should have said by their prince, by the former president, by banksters and tech oligarchs that were connected to Mr. Epstein. That would have been more accurate, but they still, 12-year-old boys, some of them not even understanding of these concepts. Apologizing is absolutely ridiculous. It's traumatizing, and in my opinion, this is psychological abuse. This symbolic apology for behavior of the worst in our society not only perpetrates a victim class, but mentally and psychologically hurts these children with many times irreversible damage. Again, there are a lot of bad people out there that do very unspeakable things to little children that are absolutely criminal, that absolutely deserve to be called out, that absolutely deserve to be in jail for the rest of their existence. And to put that all on one specific gender is absolutely clueless and ridiculous, but it's a part of this woke culture that, of course, destroys any logical, reasonable conversations and paints it with a huge generalized paintbrush that, of course, plays on the collective, which the elites benefit from since it obfuscates any potential responsibility from the ruling class and, of course, blames all boys. And again, that is the paramount of total ignorance. And today we are also learning that one of the founding fathers, a person described as the beacon of today's woke ideology, philosopher Michael Foucault, is being accused of hurting and abusing boys in Tunisia in unspeakable ways. This after a fellow intellectual came out with these bombshell, terrifying allegations, which the Times in the United Kingdom believes to be the truth. And now here in the United States, another previous prominent former establishment figure who's been to all the galas, was surrounded by all the celebrities, Ghislaine Maxwell, has just had new charges brought against her, new indictments by the U.S. government that is bringing a fourth minor in this case and adding on this second superseding indictment to this very important court case that many people see as a larger containment operation that is trying to protect many of the social, economic, and political elites that, of course, were tied into Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, as you know from our previous reporting, we talked about this case and how the original charges against her were very troubling, to say the least, since many of the documents are still under seal. The charges were very light, especially considering the larger implications in this entire case. And now, only as of yesterday, she has been officially charged with trafficking of a minor, which of course we knew she did to thousands of children. Now this is one particular charge for one minor that allegedly was groomed at 14 years of age to do unspeakable things, and later she was even compensated and paid for it. Now again, it is also important to note here that there have been victims of this entire situation coming forward to the police and FBI for over 30 years, and the FBI, along with many police departments all across the country, widely ignored the victims. Now we have one charge based on one victim, and that really, of course, is making people wonder what's going to be going on with this particular court case. We, of course, are going to be following this story very closely. There are a lot of very unsatisfied, unhappy victims of this entire saga. And let's be honest here, it definitely looks like the federal government aided and abetted a larger extortion, trafficking, child ring. And when you have elements of the federal government doing something like that, it really doesn't give you much trust in the government, and it shouldn't, rightfully so. Again, the original indictment against Maxwell stems from charges almost 30 years from now. This is allegedly when, of course, Bill Clinton and many other prominent politicians were not involved. These new charges are a step in the right direction, but still a drop in a bucket compared to, of course, the huge waterfall of people involved in this situation. And until we see a lot of the documents unsealed, until we see the actual evidence presented in front of us, again, it's your best bet to be skeptical of this entire situation, since it was already covered up for nearly 30 years. Until some extremely powerful people start going down for these horrible crimes, skepticism is your best friend. And until then, it's your best bet not to give more of your personal liberties and freedoms to government when they ask for it. When they do, be like, hey, what about that Mr. Epstein that you guys aided and abetted? Until we figure that out, I don't feel comfortable helping you or sponsoring you or giving anything to you, buddy. That should be the normal conversation. That should be the discussion on the mainstream media, but it's not, and it's an absolute travesty that it happens. But with independent media, we could fight that as best as we can by simply double-clicking the URL of this video and sharing it with your friends and family members. And if you find me annoying or you don't like my nose or whatever it may be, feel free to troll in the comment section below. I always appreciate the trolls. But most importantly, get the articles out there. You could just type in the URL to any search engine, preferably an alternative one to the big tech ones, and you could find these articles and you could share them with your friends and family members. And I think it's more important than ever to make them realize, hey, the same government that you blindly trust and follow aided and abetted child trafficking with thousands of children for over 30 years. That's not a reach. That's a fair assessment to make here. And on that backdrop, that's definitely going to make people think. That's what we hope. That's what we try to do on this independent media channel. And if you appreciate it, thank you so much for being here with us. Share this video, like this video, troll me in the comments. I appreciate it very much. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, and this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.